folks, hello and welcome back. It has been a while. Yes, that's what we're gonna go with. It's been a while since we have recorded one of these. This is actually the last one we are going to be recording for Qodron's Uprising. And before I forget, like I have done in the past, let's do introductions. I am Good Game Kitty. I am the creator of the Dungeons and Destiny project.
I'm Martin, the lead writer and editor for the D&DESTINY project.
And I'm Laura. I draw things. I make them look real pretty.
and she's Lore. And so, again, just as a reminder, it has been a little bit of a time since you probably don't need the reminder. It's been a while. It's been a while, so apologies if we are not continuing exactly where we left off from the previous episode. But like I said, this is going to be our last recording, our last dev commentary recording on Qodron's Uprising. And what I'm really hoping to talk to my, fellow team members here about is just kind of like, hey, how you feeling after all that? Just kind of sit down and look back on everything that happened, how the module was run, the way people reacted to it, what sort of things we're hoping to change, and why we want to change those things. What are we most proud of? What are we least proud of? And do you guys wanna start with that? Like, what are you most proud of? What are you least proud of?
Well, I was just gonna go with my gut responses because even though it's been a while, I do remember the final encounter because it was a nail biter for sure.
God, yeah. That encounter
was really close. It was like one round away from
Yep.
utter disaster.
Yeah. It was.
Whew. Didn't know they would make it in time.
This is probably the worst thing to bring up. Like, of everything that has been done, everything that has been said, all the things players have done, all the things that have been designed, this is the thing that actually sticks out in my brain the most about that final encounter. And that was at the very end, when I believe it was Ariadne, who was played by Eidolon Gold.
Yes.
She had, they had done the final sequence, they had knocked down the shield on the Vex network node, and we probably should do a summary so people can remember how to do this stuff, huh? We'll get
Nah, they'll all remember it. They've all got eidetic memories. We're just the losers who don't.
But, okay. So yeah, they did all the sequences, knocked down the Vex network node shield, and Ariadne ran back into the center of the arena, because what she did, she attacked it, and she did just under the amount of damage needed to kill the node. And what sticks out in my mind is that what I should have done is, instead of ruining that climactic moment, I should have let her just kill the node. Dang it! They needed someone else to come in there and do another attack afterwards. And that's the thing I regret the most.
Sticking too close to the rules, huh?
I'm sticking too close to the rules.
Listen, if it was a video game, they wouldn't have given them such mercy.
No, but in a video game, you can reset faster.
True, you can. You can just be like, oh, I guess it's time to push the power button. Or F4 out of this, depending on your console of choice.
We, accurately replicated the experience of wiping to a raid boss that has 1 pixel of health left, so, success.
But at what cost?
The crushing pain of utter defeat. But we didn't get that, so we're good.
Yeah, they still ended up winning. They still ended up defeating Qodron and destroying the node and winning at Qodron's Uprising. So it still came out, good in the end. I am just going to... That lesson is been emblazoned at the forefront of my mind, which we'll find out how that influences my gaming decisions going forward. Martin, you mostly did dev work on this stuff. What sticks out the most for you about Qodron's Uprising? What are you most proud of? What are you least proud of?
I guess on the high level, I'm pleased that this whole module is narratively coherent. And I don't just mean that we came up with a single like story treatment to cover the whole thing, but that the narrative is twinned to and supports the gameplay of the resetting loop. When you brought me this project, I think the condition it was in was just that you wanted it to be repeatable, but there wasn't really like an explanation for that. And I'm proud of the fact we ended up with something that isn't just repeatable as a mechanical conceit, but is repeatable because of how it is framed as a storytelling exercise. There is a Vex-induced reset loop at play in this situation, so repeating the module isn't just running it back to see if you've beat it this time. It's actually engaging with the events that the module represents.
Sorry, I was trying to zoom in here on the actual mechanic
Chronometric
itself that
polarization.
you put together. Yeah, this was... Oh boy, having to read this out and all the words you put in here on this one. I mean,
So this is the other kind of thing that I'm pleased with. Like, I think everybody who writes stuff for games or any reason really has like pet bits that they're just like isolated little things, and sometimes it's the urge to sneak in a reference to something. Sometimes it's just feeling really good about managing to use a strange word or a cool word, or exactly the right word for something specific. And chronometric polarization just sounds like some Star Trek-y gobbledygook, but I'm pleased that that just kind of popped into my head when we had to name like what was going on with this mechanic, and little touches like that I'm happy with. Transfinite needle, the optional exotic you can use in the last fight. I don't know if anybody perceived or suspected or even would notice such a thing, but I'm not sure if the word transfinite exists in any other context, but I got it from the bizarro 90s CGI kids show Reboot, which is about what if your computer programs were little people who lived in your computer who had to fight you when you played video games.
Oh, that's an interesting premise. I do remember Eidolon Gold, again, actually commented on the name Transfinite Needle. Ariadne was talking about how it felt thematically appropriate because if we're talking about Vex Infinity, but making it finite, it is transfinite. And she really appreciated that. At least one player really enjoyed the name that she picked out for it, even if not for exactly the reason.
I'm pleased for that. I mean, I think in Reboot, they use it in the context of talking about, I think it's a transfinite power source or transfinite processing power or something like, and they're clearly just like, it's a different sort of sideways manner of saying something is infinite or in some way beyond a finite limit. I don't know, maybe the Reboot writers got this word from some obscure mathematical, technical source that I'm ignorant of, but yeah, I don't know. It's just, it's a funny, like, maybe not real word, maybe semi-real word. I don't even know. That is also like a very, very obscure reference to something almost.
God, we had so many
no
references.
chance everybody picking up. Yeah, I mean, those are fun, and it's important to not be precious about that sort of thing, because you don't, I mean, first of all, you don't want to, make the larger context of something you're writing in some way worse because you're insisting on keeping some little cute token you've shoehorned into it. But you also don't want to do that too much because you don't want people reading, or in this case, playing your material, to constantly be distracted by getting the references. But even so, it's fun to to treat yourself to a few such things. And, I like Transfinite Needle because it's not really distracting, but it also manages to give me the totally pointless personal enjoyment of folding in a little token like that.
Yeah, there's...
Oh, and Varric's dialogue. I'm pleased with my Varric's dialogue.
Oh.
I have feelings, TM, about how Elixni speaking human language are represented in different ways in Destiny. And suffice it to say, I feel Varric's is the correct TM way. And so, when I get to write Elixni dialogue of some kind, even if it isn't Varric's, but especially when it is Varric's and we know there's a certain, not really broken, but slightly off-kilter manner of speaking expected from him, that's
it's
enjoyable to get to do.
It really feels like it's an alien way of perceiving language, if that makes sense. Like when
which is exactly what it should be, because it's not just like somebody speaking a foreign language that they don't have fluency in. This is an alien organism with radically different anatomy that somehow is physically capable of pronouncing our language, possibly. Unclear whether that is always technologically mediated or if they can just actually, if Elixni mouth parts can produce the sounds necessary for human language. But on top of that, it's a foreign language they're speaking, even if it is, vocalized with the assistance of some kind of device. So suffice it to say, we don't need to get into a sidetrack about the many reasons I don't like the spider, but one of them is that he speaks just strangely fluent English. And I assume he comes across the same way in other languages.
He speaks strangely fluent English, and he also sounds like a New York mobster at the same time.
Yeah, I'm really not trying to start. I'm really not trying to start, but like, it just felt wrong from day one of Forsaken, and I never got over it.
Well, okay. Tempted to go into this tangent and defend my boy Spider, but no, let's stick on Qodron's Uprising.
Spider's getting nuked from orbit, and
well, I mean, yeah, for what he did to Crow,
he's getting
nuked, but
anything about it.
Oh, anyways,
except pop bottles, which we will.
I should actually mention, considering, especially what you said towards the beginning of when you're describing, your favorite things about this module and what you are most proud of, taking this pile of gobbledygook that I dumped on your metaphorical desk and turning it into the game that people got to play through, that was no small feat. And that is something that I wish I had given you a stronger outline to work with and not put so much on you. I am still really glad for what you came up with and, how we ended up. It's basically the work that you did is why we ended up where we are with Qodron's Uprising. And I'm still really glad for all of that. That's just another lesson I'm going to be taking into the future with me here, which is maybe don't put so much responsibility on a single person's shoulders.
Well, I mean, I could fan myself and say, oh yes, it was such a lift, but I was up to it because I'm just that good. But I mean, your heap of gobbledygook, as you put it, was a fairly well-structured mechanical lump. The structure did not change much once, I started working on it. You had already built the bones of what the module would be in terms of gameplay, like which ways you could go, what sorts of spaces there were. And because it was already set in the prison, like I had a lot to work with in terms of how to clothe it appropriately in narrative and flavor terms. And I think really the only thing that I actually contributed was the conceit that what if it's, a Vex loop of some sort.
It was 100% your idea to have Qodron in a T pose, okay? And also,
Well,
it was your
that's one of
idea.
those small things that I'm quietly proud of. It's not like a critical design element, really, you know.
It was also your idea to have the transfinite needle used to basically hit the reset button on the router.
Hmm.
I don't remember if players picked up on that or not.
I sure hope so. Like, I don't know if anybody. I feel like people got to remember this tool or its, evolution, because there's a similar tool now for like opening the SIM card slot on a smartphone that's like a little flat metal handle with just a short tine that you insert into a very small port in the side of your phone to pop open the little SIM card slot. But there used to be, similar reset button ports in other devices, and usually you would just unbend a paperclip for that purpose. But growing up, my dad had like a purpose-made tool for poking those little reset
Like a specialty
ports.
toothpick.
Yeah, I mean it was a like a short piece of wire about the gauge of a normal sort of paper clip. So it's not like it was super special or anything, but it had a little plastic handle, like a flattened rectangular handle with little like finger divots on the side. So it's like just a hugely over designed piece of paper clip for the sole purpose of poking into reset holes. And
That's wild.
yeah, I don't know where he got that or like why
It's
that was
like
a
there's just a
thing.
paperclip. Just
I put that in the
Right,
same
but it
category.
was so much cooler than just a paperclip. Like there was
Oh my
something.
God.
I was impressed by this as a child. Obviously, there was some like gravitas to having this so specifically single-purpose tool
Okay, but
for
we're
this
gonna put that in the same
particular.
category as a letter opener.
Exactly, a letter opener is a almost equally ridiculously specialized implement, except if in a pinch you can just stab somebody with a letter opener. So it's like a bad knife, at least, in addition to opening letters. But
I mean,
but this little
you could stab
this
somebody with
little
that tool
reset thing.
too. It'd
No,
be
you
even
really
worse.
couldn't. It was
Nice.
too it was too
But we
fine.
gotta
It
get
would
back
just
to
like
Qodrons.
bend.
We gotta get back to Qodrons.
Okay, well, my point is I was inspired, and I don't remember what the idea was about concocting a special exotic in the module. I forget if you had the proposition that it would somehow be useful in the final fight, but I think I immediately had this thought of what if it's a reset poker?
I
And
wanted to have a weapon in classic Destiny fashion. You said, I think they should have to do something with it, even if it's just poke the node, which makes the subtle joke that this is a reset pin. That
I
was your
hope somebody got
contribution.
that.
But
I feel like it was too cool to be like mentally delegated in somebody's mind to a reset pin, like just
Well,
poking
but
something
that's
with
the
it.
joke. Like, you
Yeah.
do all this high
I
tech Vex wizardry to construct this like fucking
I
spear
personally didn't
looking
connect the
thing,
two.
and then you actually like go use it, and it hits you. This is just a reset pin. This is a fancy Vex paperclip.
It probably didn't hit me because I didn't even know like reset pin, just that word itself
I mean,
is
I
a
don't know if
like it
that's
was a
what it was
thing.
really called, or
You
if
call
that's just
yourself a
what I came up
millennial.
for it. I may be dating myself here.
It's a
I don't
reset
know how
pin.
long it's been since this has
I
been
know
a
what
thing.
it is. I know what the thing is. I know what
No,
you're
no, the
talking
word
about.
is, that is what the word is. But Lore, again, you
Yeah.
gotta. Lore!
I'm talking about Qodrons. I'm just
Okay.
saying like I'm just saying like I feel like that the transfinite needle was just so cool and elaborate, and even in the fight it was like more than just like boop, it was something that was like needed to be protected at all costs, and Qodron was messing with it, and the characters were all like really worried about it, plus feeding the nodes, and then finally, like I think Enyo at the end chooses to attack the needle, which in turn killed Qodron. I believe that's what happened because there was no way for them to finish off Qodron, but they beat the needle and they took that out in the final hit. And once the needle was done, Qodron had nothing, so he just sort of evaporated. Because the box evaporated. The box that the needle was in evaporated, and Qodron disappeared, or whatever it was that he did.
Enyo
He
did a
went into the
tectonic
ether.
fist.
Yeah.
That damaged
Punch,
the
that's
node.
fancy punching.
Fancy punching.
It's fancy striker punching.
But
we
Laura,
both
I've
know
been
that.
trying to ask you.
Yes.
What are you most happy with? You didn't do a whole lot of the design stuff, but you did help out a lot with the streaming, and
I did. I was happy that, the people were engaged. That was my biggest, I played some Qodrons, but not like the players did, I just helped with technical things on the side, and I didn't even draw anything for this event. There's just too much other things for me to draw at the time, but, I was just happy that they were able to beat it, honestly. I didn't want them to just get to the end and have, those last couple of seconds and suddenly, everything goes wrong and, Trillium is deleted from existence, which almost occurred.
Mm-hmm.
And, they had to get reset again, and basically everything was just kablooey, and there was no way of winning. Nobody got $10 million. Nobody passed go, and it would have sucked. And so I'm really proud and glad that they were able to pull it off in the end, because otherwise that would have been really disappointing.
Should we write that, Martin? Should we write a "you failed" ending? The Mass Effect 2, the only person that survives is Joker, who flies away because everyone dies.
Oh, I still haven't played Mass Effect.
Oh well.
That's not the true ending.
It's not. No, that is if you do everything wrong.
That's the hardest ending to get. To be honest,
it is. You have to go out of your way to try to get that ending.
I'm intending to pick up a copy of the Legendary Edition at some point, so I'll get back to you on that particular question. But if we want a fail state ending that is easy enough to tack on, I'm sure.
I would say yes. I always assumed that there was a fail because, well, that's the other option, isn't it?
Well, we didn't.
If they fail, doesn't the loop just reset? They get.
Well, yeah, I guess
they get slurped out by chronometric polarization, and
we did almost lose a character, though.
Right, but that wouldn't change the outcome of a failed attempt on the node, right?
No, it wouldn't. But that's what I'm talking about, potentially writing something in there that says, if they've tried it X amount of times and they haven't been able, then yeah, at this point it is here's the epilogue for your failure. I don't know how that would go over in a TTRPG, because, in a video game, you just restart the video game. In a TTRPG, if you... Going through Qodron's Uprising typically took 2 sessions, and that is with, not trying to toot my own horn here or anything, but that is with a very experienced GM and also experienced players who know how to take their turns quickly, who know the mechanics of the game, so you don't have to spend so long looking everything up all the time. And so we can get through turns, we can get through fights. We were getting through, I think, 3 or 4 fights every session, which, considering how involved and mechanically dense some of them could be, cough Vex Network Note itself, which is several pages long of text explaining how it works, that's, it's kind of impressive that it only took 2 sessions to get through a single run. But it all comes back to, if 2 sessions is a single run, and then we say after 6 runs a failure, well, that's 12 sessions, which is representing anywhere from 12 to 24 weeks of gameplay. That's a lot of time to come to a fail state. So it would be interesting to put a fail state, little epilogue thing in here, but I honestly don't think we should actually do that. I know I was the one who suggested it, but after talking it out and thinking it through, I don't think that's something to do.
I'm glad we sorted out that.
Oh, yeah. We worked together in that one real hard. I'm so sorry, everyone.
Sorry, I thought I had something really clever to say and back that up with, but I got nothing. I just started laughing.
Oh my god. But there are a number of things that I do want to change about this module before sending it into testing again, which we actually have the date for that now, By the time this episode goes up on our YouTube, our community will have been told all about that, so I'm not going to go into the details here. First things first, the final encounter, the Vex Network node. I am wondering if there is some way we can simplify this a little bit, somehow. And it's less, do I want to simplify it, and a little bit, I think it might have to be like with the monster stats itself is where I have to simplify things, because when I'm running it, again, a very experienced GM running this, it was kind of hell on my side of the screen. I wish I was streaming that side of the screen so I could show you the amount of notes that I had in various places to remind me to do things at certain turns. And so I'm wondering, I don't have any answers right now, but it is something I want to try thinking about, of simplifying things a little bit, or making the monsters much more simple so that you don't have to constantly refer to their stat blocks and you can just kind of wing them because they're just so basic and stuff like that. Condensing how the oracles work so that you don't have to track them across like 3 different turns for them to activate. Just more set it and forget it mechanics. And the other thing, these two things kind of go in together, hand in hand, because pacing as we're going through the encounters, you're starting off with the junkyard, which is a pretty basic encounter, and then they just get more complex, and especially when you get to like Network Nexus, that's a boss fight, and then the Overmind, there's boss fights, and there's all kinds of stuff going on. It can be really exhausting trying to go through all of these every single time to fight your way up to the Vex Network node. On one hand, though, that is kind of how just 5e is designed. It's designed, and, by extension, Dungeons & Destiny is designed in this way, where you expect players to go through a certain amount of encounters in a quote-unquote adventuring day. Now, an adventuring day doesn't have to actually be like a day. It's just the amount of time between long rest, and a long rest is when you get all your health, all your abilities back. It's when you get all your resources back. And 5e and Dungeons & Destiny, they're both resource management games. It's about when do you spend your resources and on what actions are you spending them on. And it's the risk assessment skill that gets tested. Because there's no skill in rolling dice, okay? It does not matter who rolls the dice, your odds of hitting is going to be the same. You don't suddenly get a better shot of hitting your opponent just because you had someone else roll your dice, unless it is to, like, literally throw the dice at someone and that someone else is like Joe Mauer or something. But, yeah, so just in general, not just with the Vex Network node, but going over these arenas and trying to simplify their mechanics a little bit and get better pacing in here for spreading things out, and possibly even putting in a mechanic that allows you to skip certain arenas. Like if you beat an arena 3 times, then once you go to it the next time after that, it's just assumed that you'll beat that arena and you can keep going, and you don't have to do every single fight every single time. I don't know if anyone else has any opinions on any of that, but that's
Oh, the only comment I was going to make is it sounded like you were making a throw the dice at somebody joke.
Oh,
and that's
yeah,
the
it
only
was.
skill.
I don't think anyone...
chuck it at someone else's head.
Yes, I said if you're going to throw the dice at someone else, and the only way that rolling dice would be a skill-based activity is if you were actually trying to hit someone with your dice, and also the person you gave the dice to was Joe Mauer, he's a baseball player. Yeah, anyways, sport ball! That's our obligatory sport ball joke. Now we can go back to being nerds.
Man, that was almost too sporty for me.
And, okay, so you remember the simulation seeds?
Yeah.
Do you remember how they needed to find the right simulation seed? I think I messed that one up, and I should have specifically made it so that more exotics required simulation seeds, so there was a higher probability of someone's exotic needing to be sacrificed for the simulation seed. But that's like purely related to how things are run on the server, and not really a situation you would run into if you're running this at home. And as fun as it is to run things like that for the server, the content that we put in here in this document does need to be built for at-home play, and we're trying to get it to a point where we can, put this out there as like, hey, here's our V1.0 module. Here's how you can run the Prison of Elders, and then here's Qodron's Uprising when you want to do a story that takes place in the Prison of Elders.
Yeah.
And we might need art for that, Lore, so get ready to draw a shit ton of Vex, baby!
I have a job security.
Yay! And, other than just a bunch of other stuff that I remember us talking about in previous episodes, there was, just random comments all over the place. And there's a few of the arenas that players did not get to, and I briefly talked to Martin about this, about changing the location of where you start the Caged Wolves quest to make it so that you're more likely to go into those arenas. And
they ended up doing that storyline, though, didn't they?
Yes, they did do Caged Wolves, but it basically put them on one track through the prison the entire time, instead of spreading out and getting to all the arenas equally.
Yeah.
Because every time we put NPCs in any of our campaigns, everyone got to romance them, so that's all that was happening, is people were romancing them.
Yeah, they flock to your NPCs, man. Or whatever,
Not even
whoever
mine.
makes
These
the
are
NPCs.
Martin's NPCs.
Hey, Martin, did you make Meacham?
No, okay. Meacham I did make, but Martin made Thrissix. And at the time of Qodron's Uprising, that's what everyone was dealing with.
Okay. Yes.
Thrissix is a charismatic and attractive person. We could just, put more transmat pads in to solve both the problems of skipping arenas after you do them enough times, and problems of players not going to all of the spots. Like, you could say that each one of these locations has or ought to have a transmat terminal, and you can implement, a little mechanic to determine its operability that involves rolling some dice to see if it is working at a given time, because the Vex control of the systems is disrupting everything, so stuff's not gonna just work.
Yeah, I was about to
go on.
I was about to second what Martin was going to say. Is, in true video game to tabletop format, there's a transmat in every section, and if you find it, you have to either solve a puzzle or defeat a foe or do something else. Maybe put some wires back together.
Yeah,
whatever it might be, to make that transmat work.
if there's some kind of dice roll to determine if you can use a given transmat, maybe that is modified based on the number of times you have cleared an arena in such a way that if you've cleared it 3 times, you just can use that transmat reliably.
I'm liking this.
On the flip side, a GM can just not let players use transmats strategically to steer them toward, different pathways as desired or necessary.
Yeah, because we had a whole train heist that didn't get used, and I wanted to run the train heist real bad.
Nobody even knew.
Nobody even knew that it existed. There was a whole train heist.
And of course, we want players to play the content. My first thought, though, is, of course, why would there be transmat pads in a prison? Because you don't want prisoners using them. But also,
the guards
have to move. Yeah, guards have to get around. Guards have to move around. And this is an Elixni-based type area, so...
It's also worth pointing out that none of the spaces that prisoners normally would not be in any of the places that
yeah, they're in their cryopods.
Players traverse. Yeah, exactly. As far as we know, every inmate in the Prison of Elders is just kept in a pod.
Okay. I think I was under the impression that the people that they were fighting over and over and over again were in some way prisoners too.
They are, but
Yes.
they're out and about because they have escaped their pods.
Yeah,
Because of
so
all
like the
Vex stuff.
transmats are out there too, so you don't want those to escape. Yeah.
That's true, but like, ads in patrol destinations ought to be able to just like waltz through Vex portals, but they don't because
True.
they're not programmed to do that.
Yeah, we don't have the
I
budget
guess
for
not.
that. And by we, I mean Bungie. I'm not part of Bungie. I don't know why I said that. um, but all right. So, it was still
Adding
a lot of
transmat
fun.
pads.
Yeah, added transmit pads. That is something that does interest me because there's a little bit of a base building mechanic we can do to it then, and we can even sort of point out arenas to players. Like if you imagine Varix has like a diagram of the affected section of the prison and all the different areas and Vex control, and every time you go through that area and you clear out the enemies there, the control weakens until eventually it gets to a point that the transmat pad on there works. And essentially players do get to see kind of the layout of the prison. And they can see there are places that they haven't been to.
I also like it because of the idea of the lovely and just so constantly needed fast travel systems. And,
Yeah.
it could even be a system where, like, if they've cleared, like, not just like, oh, you've cleared it so many times you can reliably use this transmat, but maybe like even a situation where Varix can start giving them codes, or they can find codes which allow them to go to certain rooms, or like, if you've been into this room before, you
So
now
what
have.
we're making is a roguelike
transmit.
Metroidvania. Anyways.
It's
I
just
don't
the
wanna-
infinite forest all over again.
It's just the
with this
infinite
map.
forest, God. We can never get away from it. Oh, but
No, it's just like, it's just fast travel between the different areas that are actually, except Qodron's lair. You can't just transmit to Qodron's lair. It's not that easy.
Well, and you wouldn't be able to because, as I tried to communicate with the bits of description for that space, that is no longer just like a room in the prison of elders.
Exactly.
There's some overlap with weird Vex space going on there.
Yeah.
But this was still a lot of fun to run, and I'm really glad that players enjoyed it. And to sort of touch up on something that Laura brought up, Meacham was made for. Meacham's another character of mine that I made for plot reasons. I made Meacham as because I didn't want the testing for this to run forever. It was, if players didn't beat it by a certain amount of time, this NPC fire team was going to be the ones who beat it, so that we could take in all the feedback, make the updates, and then do the second round of playtesting on it. And Meacham was just a character made for that other fire team, and has turned into a whole thing. That's the second time that's happened to my characters. I gotta stop doing this.
Meacham is just guardsman. This is an attempted Fire Emblem joke reference.
I have played Fire Emblem way too long ago to get that joke. I'm so sorry, Martin. I let you down so much.
I mean, I cannot handle modern Fire Emblems. They got too complicated like a long time ago. But my understanding is there's a recent Fire Emblem where there was a nameless, faceless like guard, and there was some poll about who they should add as a playable character, and by like a thunderous landslide, it was guardsman. So that guard is now a playable character in whatever Fire Emblem I'm talking about.
Friggin' gamers. But do we have any last closing words we want to say for Qodron's Uprising and dev commentary on it?
Oh, sorry, I was sneezing. What did you say?
Oh my God, Lore! Lore!
I'm sorry, I can't control my allergies. I'm sorry.
Do we have any last comments on Qodron's Uprising? I think the only thing that I would have left to say on this is that as fun as it was also incredibly exhausting. And if this is I feel like this is just a taste of what the average video game developer goes through for making their content. And it's, oh boy, it puts things into perspective for you real fast, just how much goes into everything that you play through in 10 minutes and then hop on to the subreddit to talk about. It's months, years in the making, and I'm sitting here going, oh, now I'm exhausted, and I'm not even the one who's making all that content.
Can we? I don't know when this is gonna air, but can we like say what we plan to do with Qodrons in the future on the server?
Yeah, so by the time this goes out, I mean, we already kind of told people already right before we started recording this, but we're going to make all the changes to it. We're going to do all of our updates and respond to all the feedback we've got, and then we're going to be doing a second round of playtesting for this starting in January, and it'll run for about 2 months, and
I think it will be interesting when we do re-release to see how just contained parties do. I think it was a little bit more hectic in the server this time around because we had so many players. So I think having every single player go through it in their own self-contained world, in their own self-contained way, in their own fire teams that they kind of bond with, it'll be interesting to see how people take that. And how they handle Qodrons and the giant roguelike. We've basically, this TTRPG we've turned into a roguelike, basically, and see how different people with different, play styles take to that.
it will be a lot of fun. And
it'll certainly be interesting.
That is the thing that I am most proud of, is, making a roguelike in a TTRPG. That still gets me. God, I love being a game designer. But okay.
Got anything, Martin? Any last words?
Qodron will return.
But okay. I think here is where we're going to wrap things up. Thank you to everyone who joined us on this journey, whether you were listening along to these vodcasts or if you were a player who helped deal with all of this and take down Qodron in the end, or just, shut up for one session and had a blast. We're really looking forward to running this again and getting more feedback on it, and it'll be approximately early summer 2022 when this will go live to the public, and then you'll be able to download it and download all the best maps that we can make with the assets that we have. I mean, they're good assets, so you'll be able to download this. It'll come with a bunch of maps and some guide material for how to run it, especially for the Vex Network node, and you'll be able to take a crack at it yourself. We'll have our first V1.0 module. Assuming that, we don't hit the 2,500 goal on the Patreon first and then do an absolute whirlwind of work to get the origin stories done, because that I am super excited about. Holy cow, I have so many ideas. But that's neither here nor there. So here is where we're going to say adieu, and thank you, and good luck out there. And make good choices, and try not to die.